Hello, how are you? Some of you already have heard me before, so I can identify you as my friends. I'm very happy that you turned on again and you're interested to hear what I have to say. And those who are turning in for the first time, welcome. I look forward to see you and speak with you every weekend and every week. We come on the air every Thursday evening. And so I hope you can join us. I'm trying to share with you my experiences during the Holocaust. And I must tell you, it is very hard to remember things which you try to forget a lifetime. My entire lifetime I tried to get away from it and try to forget it. And now I'm talking to you because I feel there's a need, an urgent need, for people to know what anti-Semitism is and what it leads to. There's no such thing as evil speech. Evil speech leads to evil deeds. And so I would like to share with you what happened to me. After my father was taken away and killed on the 23rd of July 1941, our life changed altogether. We were left a household. My mother was expecting my two little sisters, the older one and the younger one. Myself, we were left alone. My mother was a housewife, and so she couldn't get a job. Not being able to get a job, she was always vulnerable to be killed. At that time, the Germans began to demand ID cards, or distributed ID cards. And those who had an ID card that they worked in a useful place, such as a school for seamstresses, or working in a place where they were cutting down trees and converting it into boards. It's called a Tartag. A Sägefabrik, I think. They had a chance. And so people were groping and trying to reach to some conclusion. Some were paying money to get a shine. A shine means an ID card in order to identify themselves as gainfully employed and gainfully employed for the benefit of the state. My mother couldn't do it, but we managed to survive. Between the 23rd of July, 1941, till February 22nd, 1942, I was basically pendling, traveling between the village, the farm where I stayed, and my home. And so I lived tried to be what I was not, tried to pretend that I was a little Christian boy, a farmer boy, and adapt myself to the circumstances. And I was coming back home every once in a while to see my mother, see my sisters. And during this time, I must tell you, I lived a very difficult life. It was not easy for me as a child of 6, 7 to go through this process. But at least while I was on the farm, I was safe. After a while, this too became untenable. And the farmer was exposed to the danger of losing his life, because the neighbors began to talk about a little boy who lives on the farm. And so I had to move back into my mother's house, and I remained there. And that was already late, well into the winter. Well into the winter. How we managed to survive, I really don't know. I don't remember. I do not recall hunger. We were relatively well off, and we had probably, my mother was able to buy from our neighbors, from the farmers, whatever was necessary for us to survive, to eat. We also had a huge field of our own where I presume vegetables were grown. And so for some reason, some way, somehow, we managed to survive. Our uncle was of great help to us, and so we kept on living there. In the meantime, the Jewish people lived in a total danger and total fear. Fear of being killed at any moment for any reason. I remember there was a young man, he was a student in the yeshiva, and he was walking outside in the afternoon of one of these days. It must have been October, November, and he was shot dead for no reason, just because he was walking outside. Jewish people were in fear of being sent over to concentration camps, to labor camps. One night, all the gypsies were rounded up and killed in one day. A Jewish woman, when the Jewish people were forced to turn in all their valuables, was taken out of the line and accused that she was trying to hide some kind of rings or so on, and killed in front of everybody, just to teach a lesson to others that nobody should try to hide anything. She didn't hide anything, but she was used as an example for the others to be put into a state of fear. In the meantime, the Jewish people were kind of left in a limbo. There were rumors about the next towns, they were being exterminated. And I remember people talking, saying, in our town, that's not going to happen, because in our town, the people are good. In our town, we have good relationships with our neighbors. But the fact of the matter is that many of the neighbors were robbing their neighbors and taking away from them everything they had. That was taking place also. And many of the young people joined the Nazi militia and were serving as policemen for the Germans in order to enforce all their laws against the Jews. That also was taking place during this time. And then, in addition to this, the people were also developing all kinds of messianic hopes that they'll be redeemed. It'll only last a few weeks, a few months, but the fact of the matter is we know how long it lasted and we know how it ended. It did not end in a redemption, but somehow the people were reaching out for that, hoping something will happen. Nothing happened. Many people, when the Russian army retreated, also retreated with the army and managed to end up perhaps somewhere in Russia. But by and large, our town was left desolate, isolated, and in fear. And because of that, there was really a rudderless situation. The 120 people who were taken away and killed when my father was taken away, these were the 120 people, the creme de la creme, the leadership of the community. They were the leadership of the financial, the leadership of the intellectual. They were the leadership of the potential people who could organize a resistance to the Germans. And they were taken away, and therefore the Jewish community was left rudderless and desolate and alone. My mother managed to survive on her own. She did what she could. We also had my grandfather, my father's father, who used to be in our house back and forth. And he was, for me as a child, a great source of solace and comfort. I was very close to my grandfather too. And I liked him. And so seeing my grandfather every time I came into town was also a great pleasure for me. But the main thing was to see my mother, my sisters, and that was basically the joy of my life whenever I came back for a visit from the town, from the village. And so this was going on till February 1942, the 22nd of February, at which time a new chapter of misery and suffering and fear and death started. I hope I'll see you next week, at which time I'll share with you some more things of my life. Remember, I'm doing in order to fight anti-Semitism, and if you agree with us, please give us a thumb up, and we'll answer you, and if you write to us, we'll answer you as well. God bless you. Have a good day and a good week.